Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are going to do lesson 1-1 in our course 2 book from Springboard about adding and subtracting decimals. And if you will please pause and turn to page 3 in your book. The example that we're doing is from there. Over to the left-hand side, we've got learning targets, and the learning targets, which are also found in your book. Our goal today is to first solve problems with decimals using addition and subtraction, and 2 is to justify solutions with decimals using addition and subtraction. And our last one is to estimate decimal sums and differences. So we're going to talk first about a couple of terms. We've got our Cornell note format where we've got our line that we've drawn down the side here on the left-hand side, and we're going to come up with a couple of terms. In Cornell note format, we're going to write down estimate, because we're going to be asked to estimate, which is using mental math. Mental math, I want you to note, is not the same as rounding. Okay, it is not the same as rounding. So, the other term we'll talk about or we'll use is compute. And to compute is when you find the exact answer. Okay, so those couple of terms will help us out. And then a question, why estimate? Why is that an important step? And the question is to see if our computation is reasonable. To see if our computation is reasonable. Okay. Now I'll be moving on to the next slide. In the book, you'll notice there's a problem situation written over up at the top, and it says, how long do you think it would take to make a paperclip chain that is 10 paperclips long? Well, last year, students with the best time was able to do this in 26. I'm going to go ahead and note that. Last year's time was 26 and 25 seconds. 26 and 25 hundredths of a second long is how long it took. Okay, so if we were to do this activity, we have here the data. I've got example data over here to the side, and what we are going to do is actually add, and then we're going to also estimate to see if our computation is correct. So we're going to add over here. Make a note there. So to the actual numbers that we have over here, what we need to do is write them down and line up our decimals for dividing. And I know this is review, but adding this to our notes, that way we'll be able to use it as a reference. We've got 35 and 24 hundredths, 50 and 23 hundredths, 34 and 23 hundredths, and 28 and 5 tenths. Okay, I want you to notice when we were doing this here, well, we've got all of these and we were lighting them up vertically up and down, and we have the decimal points here all lined up. Whenever you add and subtract, you want to do that, and we're going to be asked to add. So first thing I want to know is what is the actual answer? I'm going to add this placeholder 0 in and then do my computation. I have 4 plus 3 is 7, plus another 3 is 10, plus 0 is 10. Then I have, let's see, 5, I'm going to make groups of 10, 5, 7, 8, 9, that's 10, and then plus 2 more is 12. And then I have, let's see, 5 plus 4 is 9, plus the 1 we carried was 10, plus 8 is 18, and then 2, 3, and 5 equals 10, plus 3 is 13 and 14. Okay, so whenever we're adding, we add the place values together, the common place values together, and then our decimal here that was lined up, we put our decimal, just drop it straight down when we add and subtract. So let's see if our answer is reasonable. Okay, so this was actually computing. Okay, and then let's see if about our estimation. So let's estimate. And I'm going to estimate right next door to where I computed. Okay, so if I take 34, and like I said at the beginning, estimating is not the same as rounding. I want numbers that are easy to work with in my head. So 35 and 24 hundredths, I don't want to deal with a decimal, but 35 I'm going to say would round up to, would be more like 40. And 50, I'm going to estimate this next number, the second number to be 50. The third number is 34, is a little closer to 30. And then the next number here I'm going to say is about 30. So if I add these up, okay, I've got, let's see here, making my groups of 10 again, I've got 6, my 3 and 3 is 6, plus 4 is 10, plus the 5 is 150. So my estimation answer, and I'm going to draw a cloud around here like that's my brain, that's my mental math brain. I said the answer should be around 150, which works, right? Matches our computation, is pretty darn close. So, right over here to the side, to compute, what you need to do is line up decimals. Line up the decimal and insert zeros for placeholders if needed. It's not always needed. Okay, so then the question, like we said, is it reasonable? And the answer is yes. And we can see that because our estimation and our last year's answer are pretty darn close to each other. They're definitely in the same ballpark. Okay, so the answer is yes. Okay, so I'm moving on to the next slide. If you need to pause here to finish writing, that is absolutely fine. Okay, on this screen here, we're going to talk about subtracting. So over to the left-hand side of your line in Cornell Note format, we're going to be practicing subtracting here. Okay, so our next question is, who was able to put the paperclip chain, going back to our original problem, who was able to be the fastest between this year and last year? Last year's time was noted as 26 and 25 hundredths. And this year's fastest time was Margaret with 28 and a half seconds. Okay, so last year's time is faster, and so now we just need to find the difference. The question now is, how much faster? And how much is a key word for subtracting. Okay, key word there. So what we need to do whenever we're subtracting is we're going to write down our original numbers, and I will put the greater number on top. So I've got 28 and a half, and I'm going to take away 26 and 25 hundredths. Now, just like when we were adding, we definitely need a zero placeholder here. Okay, I'm going to pause you right here or ask you to pause and go ahead and calculate this. When you are finished calculating, go ahead and push play, and then you will see me working it out and explaining it, and then I want you to compare your answer to my answer to see if you've got it right or to see what kind of questions you've got. So go ahead and push pause now, please. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and subtract it. I can't take 5 away from nothing, so I need to go next door to borrow. I'm going to make 5 a 4, carry my 1. 5 from 10 is 5. 4 take away 2 is 2. 8 take away 6 is 2. 2 take away 2 is 0, and I don't need to write that down. Just like before, I'm going to take my decimal and put it right down there in the final answer, and that was seconds, because we were talking about time. Okay, so last year's top time was 2.2 seconds faster than this year's time. Okay, so writing down the rule for subtracting, the goal is, or what you need to do is line up decimals and use zero placeholders if needed. Okay, so at this point we are done with our notes for today. I'm going to draw a line here. I want you to do that in your notes as well. And I want you to write summary on the left. And then right here I want you to write 2 to 3 sentences about what you learned today and just kind of going through your notes. Thank you and have a great day.